Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Sean and Joni Wolfswinkel from Texas Turnkey. Anthony, what's the takeaway or two that you had?
I tell you, we had fun, and fortunately, Joni did make fun of you. Yeah. Not until the end, but she got a good one in there. A couple takeaways that I had is that Sean had talked about if we're doing real estate, that we should have a really longer term view. I mean, he really suggested 5 years. Oftentimes we're focused on really that initial cash value. But he's talking about to also look at, like, in year 5, we have some appreciation. We have some debt pay down. You've had some tax deductions. So I appreciate his view of that being a little bit longer. And he also mentioned, a difference. We focus on property management, but he said we should be focusing on asset management and really just analyzing the assets and the cash flow. And so that's one thing that he helps his clients for. So I thought that was helpful. What about you, Cam?
Yeah, there was two things that jumped out at me. One of them is along the lines that you're saying is he referenced this thought a few times in the interview, starting with the end in mind, right? As if you're going to go into turnkey, you don't want to just go and buy one, right? Ideally, you're going to build a portfolio. And that is one of the reasons why they ended up in the duplex space. So I appreciated that. But then the other thing that you guys will hear throughout this conversation is their emphasis on the client experience. And I think that that's one thing that absolutely sets these guys apart from a lot of the turnkey providers that are out there. They've got in-house property management, but in addition to that, they've got an emphasis on client experience and making sure that, somebody's taken care of from the time they, reach out to the time that they close and even beyond. So, real big fans of these guys. Sean and Joni Wolfswinkel began investing in real estate almost 25 years ago. Together, they established Texas Turnkey Properties to better meet the unique real estate investment and property needs of institutional and individual real estate investors. They specialize in buying, selling, and managing various investment properties within several desirable communities in and around Houston and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
And if you want to learn more about what they do, this is the first time we're announcing it, but we will be doing a webinar with them, with a joint webinar where you have that ability to ask questions, and they're going to be able to show their wealth analyzer. Cameron, I don't like to, it pains me when you miss something, but it's too important to not miss. And then I'm never going to miss an opportunity to point out your errors. So this has just been great for me. So enjoy the episode.
If you're an investor or want to be an investor and you're looking to create passive income that exceeds your monthly expenses, then this is the podcast for you. Here on the Infinite Wealth Podcast, we combine the philosophies of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, along with Nelson Nash's infinite banking concept.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. And today we've got two rock stars, Sean and Joni Wolfswinkel from Texas Turnkey Rentals. Thanks, guys, for joining us today.
We appreciate it. Thank you for having
us.
Absolutely. You guys, amongst other things, help busy professionals become real estate investors without all the headaches. If you don't mind, briefly take us back to kind of the origination of Texas Turnkey. How'd that even come about?
Yeah, we've been around for a while. So we've been investing. A quick short bio. Joni and I have been investing for 25 years. That might surprise you, just because
you guys look so young.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You look like you're 25. Yeah.
We're starting really young. So we bought our first house at 19. Had a different college life experience. We're very driven people, and so we got heavily invested in real estate and started buying and selling houses. And in 2010, we just saw the need for. We were being approached by a lot of investors that said, "Hey, I want to buy investment properties like you guys and hold them, but I don't want to source them, rehab them, find them, and definitely don't want to manage them." And a lot of our
so they don't want to do any of the work.
No, they just want to reap all the benefits. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
All the profit.
All the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
I'm interested. I'm in that box too. So tell me more.
So a lot of our clients came out of expensive markets. So a lot of people that were approaching us were out of California, New York, and at that time, a lot of people from Australia. And so we started all the properties we were buying, we started rehabbing them and then placing tenants in them, and selling them as turnkey rental properties to investors. And then we started a management company and managed the properties for the investor after the sale. So that, for us, turnkey encompasses the whole thing, from finding the property, sourcing it, rehabbing or building it, and then managing it after the sale. So we're involved in the whole life cycle for the client. And in 2015, we started building new construction turnkey properties. So everything we did was build to rent. And that's really what we've done the last, I would say, 10 years, has been more build to rent. So single family and duplexes is our two products that we built. Joni and I have done some other larger projects, some 16 units, some fourplexes, but the bulk of what we sell is duplexes and single family homes. So that's a quick version of our background. Of course, today, fast forward, we manage roughly 2,300 homes or doors. We are in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Houston, Texas. Those are two markets. And what we think, we get approached by a lot of people to help people with their property management. So other management companies around the country really look to us for insight and expertise. So I feel like we do a pretty good job of providing property management services and for our clients, and that's why they've stuck around for all these years. So
now, why did you choose? Those are two different markets, and they're not geographically so close. Why did you choose those two markets?
So we started in Houston. That's where we live. Joni and I are both born and raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and we both went to UNM in Albuquerque. So that's our tie to it all, because our families are all there. But really, we were looking for another market that we could diversify our clients into. So, our clients would be happy. They were happy with the 4 or 5 doors that they bought from us here in Houston, but they're like, hey, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I want to diversify, and I like you guys. So rather than going and sourcing another turnkey company, which a lot of people did. So, a lot of my clients had 4 or 5 different turnkey providers they bought from. Everybody does it a little bit differently. And so it was always a struggle for them because they have 5 different management companies. They have some of the turnkey providers only sell them the property, but they don't manage it. They'll just refer you out. And so a lot of them had some bad experiences. And so like, well, I really don't want to manage that many people. So for us, it made sense to open another market and start selling in those markets. So we knew it. We started our investment careers there. Joni and I own property in Albuquerque. And we thought if we had to go visit family, why not have a business where we had to.
And that never happened. When we go back, it's like we see them for 2 hours and then we head back. So.
But that's how we entered that market. And it's also, Houston has some of its challenges with, we're 60 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. So of course we're always a target for, just like Florida and some of those other markets, target for hurricanes, kind of some more flooding events, even though I don't sell in a floodplain, you still have flooding events, and I think it gives some concern. Insurance rates are higher because of our proximity, where Albuquerque is a very neutral market, has the 4 seasons. It's insurance rates are pretty affordable. They don't have really any major weather events. Taxes are affordable, and a lot of companies like Netflix and NBC Studios were starting all of their businesses in Albuquerque. So it's really flourished and grown over the last 10 years mainly because of the film industry.
Now, I've heard of Texas being a landlord-friendly state.
Correct.
Then you have California, that more tenant-friendly state. where does New Mexico fall in the landlord?
I'll let Joni answer that one.
Yeah, it's actually Texas used to be a landlord friendly, and it still is compared to a lot of areas. But even in Texas, there's ever since COVID happened, right? There's been a lot of changes in the legislation. But New Mexico is starting to be a lot more like California. So very hard to evict tenants. Very tenant friendly. And so, yeah, it was a challenge for us during COVID for sure. We had to do a lot of cash for keys because we couldn't evict during that time. We had tenants that were in properties for, a year or so. And yeah, it was challenging for us compared to our Texas market. So, but yeah, New Mexico is starting to become more like California.
It follows really California and then Oregon and Washington. The governor follows those same governors. So whatever decisions they'll make, she usually follows in the same. Answer your question. Yeah.
Guys,
okay, go ahead, Cam.
Yeah, sorry. I heard you mention a couple things that kind of maybe separate you from others. One is the property management piece, but also the dual markets that you're in. And I think I heard you mention duplexes. So why duplexes? Where did that come from?
So it's a great question, and I know we're going to get into it today as far as talking about like asset management and versus just regular, I guess, property management.
Yeah.
But the big reason is for me, like for a client to have a really good experience, and I think to really have success in investing in residential real estate, is they need to build a portfolio. So when I always have my one-on-ones with clients, it's about, I'm usually talking to them about, let's not focus on I don't really want you just to buy one rental property, because if you just buy one rental property, the minute you have a vacancy or the HVAC unit needs to be replaced, there goes your whole income for the year, and you're usually frustrated. And so to me, it's about building a portfolio of rental properties, and then that's where you're going to have a better experience. You're going to see the greatest growth, wealth-wise. And so why not? So when you buy one property, why not buy with 2 units? So it was always about higher cash flow, higher returns, and then a better client experience. So if they do have a vacancy in one unit, at least the other unit's covering the debt service, so they're not going to like zero cash flow. So to me, it provides, again, a better experience, higher return, and what we've seen is about the same or greater appreciation rate on the duplexes compared to the single family. So the duplexes have been appreciating just as fast as a single family. So for me, it's a much better investment long-term wise. Now there are some limitations on exiting because obviously if you have a duplex, you're going to sell to another investor. In most cases, there are trends where homeowners will live in one unit and rent out the other, but they got to have that kind of investor mindset or wanting that, which not all homeowners want to live right next to their tenant. And so in most cases, that duplex is going to have to sell to another investor. And where a single family home, your pool of buyers is much greater because you're selling to owner occupied people that are going to live in that house. So
do you want to increase your returns and lower your taxes? Well, that's exactly what the infinite banking concept can do. This is a game changer, and we can show you how it works.
Book your free call with us and learn how to build wealth the smart way. Stop procrastinating. Go schedule a call now. The link is in the show notes.
There's a lot of other turnkey providers out there. Most of them are selling homes that they did the rehab. You're doing a build out from a new build. What are some of the differences between buying a fully rehabbed and buying a brand new duplex?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when we were building, remodeling homes from like 2010 to 2016, 17, what we noticed, especially towards the end there, was that our clients, they didn't want any major maintenance or deferred maintenance or CapEx expenses, within that first 5 to 10 years of them purchasing the property. So, they didn't want to have to replace a roof within 5 to 10 years. They didn't want to have to replace an HVAC system. So we started to end up having to, every time we bought a property, pretty much, even if the roof had another 3-4 years, we were replacing the roof. If the HVAC, was 12 years old, but it's running fine and nothing wrong, we would still end up replacing the whole HVAC system, because I think if you bought the property, like you or I were buying it, we'd probably run it until it breaks, or starts leaking or issues. And so in those cases, we were spending a lot more on the rehab side of it, so that our clients had a better experience. But and the flip side of that, as a business owner and people doing turnkey, our margins really got shrunk by having to put that much more into each home. And so it made sense for us to move into new construction, because that was, then they're buying a brand new property. They don't have to worry about the maintenance issues within the first 5 to 10 years. They have a builder warranty for those first couple of years. So any maintenance issue would just go under the builder warranty. So again, it's a better client experience. I keep saying that, but that's
and I think the client experience for coming from the property management side too, right? The property management side, we would hear it from our owners, thinking, this should have been replaced when, Sean rehabbed it, those sorts of things. And even our properties were built in in the 80s and the 90s. Things are going to break. Things are going to happen, right? Plumbing goes out. Things are going to break. And so, like Sean talked about, it's just a better client experience for our clients is why we moved and shifted in that direction. Okay,
so we didn't touch on specifically, but you guys do the build and doing the management. And as Sean had alluded to, not every turnkey provider does that. Mm-hmm. What's the advantage for the investor when it's under one umbrella?
I think go ahead.
No, go for it.
All right. So I think the biggest advantage is that, we're kind of one, even though they're separate entities, we're still in the same office. We work together. And so if the turnkey side of things they didn't do what they were supposed to, I can go knock on their door and say, hey, look, you need to fix this. Right. And so at the end of the day, we're communicating and we're making sure that the client is being served what we promised to them.
Yeah, I think it's more control over being able to deliver on the returns and promises that you sold that investor when you sold them the home. So I've heard a lot of other horror stories where the turnkey company was pointing the finger at the management company, and the management company is pointing the finger at the turnkey provider. And so for us, it's all under one roof. I can deliver a better experience and deliver on those promises that I sold them on when I sold them the property. So again, just better. And I know our management company is going to do a good job, where I'd feel a little uncomfortable referring out properties that I sold to another management company.
Right.
Because I don't really do as good a job as we do.
Mm-hmm. We really focus on the onboarding process. So the minute that the turnkey property is ready, we have an onboarding team that takes that to make sure that it's ready, and so every step of the way, everybody's kind of communicating to make sure that tenant's happy, tenant moved in, there's no issues there, because it not only it gives a good experience for the owner, it also gives a better experience for the tenant as well. And ultimately, we want that tenant to stay there for years and years at a time, because that's what's going to preserve the investor's income.
I think having under one umbrella on turnkey is crucial. For one, you don't have the pointing the fingers at the other team, but also in my eyes, you have a more incentive to treat them well, because you want them to come back and to buy another one. So
correct.
If you're not treating them well in the property management, then they're going to go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Now, let's say go ahead.
Joni, you mentioned the client experience. Can you walk us through the process of how someone goes from just being interested in a turnkey duplex to actually owning one? Is there a waiting list? What does that look like?
Yeah, so Sean's got typically, there is a waiting list. We've got investors that, kind of subscribe to Sean's investor newsletter. And so anytime we have a property that's coming on board, we basically just blast that out to our investor network. And it's kind of first come, first serve. So if you're looking for a property, they reach out to, we've got several agents that are in-house that are kind of serving them. So they will reach out to our agents, get all the pro forma information. And then from there, they'll pull the trigger if that's the right investment for them. We also have a really cool tool called the Wealth Optimizer, which really kind of helps the investor make a decision on whether or not this is a great investment. So we'll plug it into our Wealth Optimizer and we can kind of see, okay, what are the returns? What do the expenses on this property look like? And so then it has the investor make a better decision whether or not that's the right fit for them. And we can help them through that process also.
Now, one thing is good or bad, but we have a turnkey property. I think that is very passive. I have a couple turnkey and I don't really have to do anything. But there is a lack of control. And there's one person on this call who is really big on control.
Oh my, just one?
Just one.
I think Joni would say there's at least two. But yeah.
You should talk about Joni like that,
But what would you say to somebody if somebody wants to control, but then this is an asset that they really can't? Is this for them, or is there a way that they can be satisfied?
Yeah, I think they should call somebody else.
So we talk about our ideal client a lot of the times, right? And that typically is not our ideal client because, if they want more control, then hey, try it yourself. But I guarantee you're probably going to make the mistakes along the way, right? And so the whole reason why you're buying it passive is so that you can do what you do best and let us handle the rest. Oh, you like that? And so, and we have to set that expectation at the very beginning, right? When we talk about what their goals are, we set that expectation. Look, if you want a passive investment, you have to let go of control. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You have to trust us, and this is a long-term relationship for all of us, right? And so, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we set that up front.
Love it. And I was just joking about calling somebody else, but yeah, I mean, the other thing is that they should, a lot of our clients are in markets that it doesn't make sense to. So I think if you're going to do it yourself because you want the control, you probably should invest in your own market. But some of your own markets, that might not make sense. If you're in parts of California, it might not make sense to buy an investment property there. You should probably be looking at Texas or Midwest state, and then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for you to do that on your own. It's going to be awfully hard to manage a tenant and everything afar. And there are technology advances, but it's still going to be very difficult. So you're going to have to release some of that control. So I think if
I will say though, for the controllers out there, right? Our team is big on putting systems and processes in place to make sure that the communication is key to all of this. When we talk to other investors, other owners that are maybe had a bad experience at a different property management company, it's most of the time it's because of the communication, the lack of it. And so some of the things that we do is we have what's called customer service representatives, we call them CSRs. And so their job essentially is to communicate with that investor once a month, regardless of what's happening in their portfolio. So if they own 10 properties, we are reaching out to them proactively to let them know, hey, this is what's happening. You have a renewal coming up here. And so just for them hearing from us proactively, a lot of them are like, okay, like I can let go of that because I know that you're going to reach out to me rather than me reaching out to you. Okay. So a lot of times the control comes from because they've had a bad experience somewhere else.
Okay. Now, you guys work with a lot of investors. Is there something you've seen that people constantly do wrong, or maybe something that investors do right?
I think to go back to your point about being passive and active, I think the investors that play a little bit more active of a role, and I'm gonna go down deeper into the weeds a little bit with this, but so I think the investors that play a little more active role in managing their portfolio do better long term. So ones that are more look at their monthly statements from the property management company, making sure that things are correct on there. Not, there's some there's like they don't even look at it unless there's a problem. Then they're calling you. Why'd you only deposit $300 instead of $1,200? Well, did you look at your statement? And the people that are usually understand what's going on and look at their statements, know what's going on in their properties, really look at when the property management company sends their renewal, making sure that, hey, does that make sense? Does that look right? Am I getting a decent a bump on my rent for that year? So looking at their mortgage situation, like, hey, should I refinance? Is now a time maybe to refinance and lower my interest rate? So they're more proactive and studious on their portfolio and making sure that it's maximizing the return that they can get out of it, and working with their property management. So having those more strategic conversations with their property management company or asset manager and making sure that, hey, is now a good time to sell? Should I hold off for another year? What's your thoughts on rent increases? Should I keep it the same to keep this tenant, or because they're willing to renew for another year? So having more detailed conversations, I think the ones that play a bigger active role in that case. So it's not going to be 100% passive in that, but you're still not doing the day-to-day operations. I think we'll have a better return. But then on the flip side of that, I think the clients that vet their property manager or turnkey provider and then trust the process, I think have a better experience. The guys that where they get in trouble, or females, it doesn't have to be a guy, where they get into trouble is when they start demanding like the property manager to change their process for something that like once they want to satisfy themselves. So like an example would be like say the maintenance limit is $450 for that management company. So any maintenance repair under $450, management company is going to do it. You'll see it on your statement. It'll give you replenished with next month's rent, and then they'll move on. But the ones that are demanding, no, I want you to notify me of anything over $50, or I want, or something like that. So then what you're happening is you're causing the management company to have to deviate from their traditional processes that they're not trained typically to do. 90% of the time they're going to fail. They're not going to be able to do that. It's going to slow them down. We have a lot of owners that want to really micromanage the leasing process, and sometimes again you'll lose really great tenants because they want to research everything, and they want to research their social media. They want to meet them. They want to, there's crazy things that you hear or that people approach us with. And so like it just creates problems and breaks down processes that we've spent a lot of time, we've learned from trial and error. And if you break those processes, we're not going to be able to manage that property effectively as we would, or using your own vendors is another case. Some clients are like, you can only use my vendors. So I want the work order to come to me. And then they think they're going to go shop it around. But they're doctors, they're busy. There's no way they have the time to go call a bunch of maintenance people to do it. And then they send some guy that doesn't have insurance, isn't licensed, out there. And then all of a sudden something happens or somebody gets hurt.
And then file a lawsuit and
they're getting sued and they don't understand why. It's like, well, and then rental properties is a bad investment and they shouldn't have done it. Well, maybe it wasn't it was maybe you, not the investment. So did that answer your question? Kind of. Yeah.
Sean, you mentioned, that was great. In the front end of that, you mentioned trust the process. Mm-hmm. And that got me thinking, what does, if someone does buy a duplex, what does success look like? Is it 12 months later? Is it 36 months, 3 years? How do you measure that? What does that look like?
They will not see the true benefit in the first 5 to 6 years. I think, in my personal opinion, you have to keep it at least 5 to 10 years to see the growth in appreciation. Your mortgage finally you start seeing the debt pay down. Mm-hmm. Like I was mentioned before, the appreciation rates, the cash flow, you'll have built up over that time. And maybe, in my personal opinion, I believe in taking your cash flow, unless you need it to buy more property, take that cash flow and accelerate the debt pay down. So kind of snowball the debt. And then the depreciation on your taxes. So for me, those are like the 4 pillars of real estate investing: cash flow, debt pay down, depreciation, and appreciation. So to me, it takes 5 to 10 years to really see that growth or that wealth created. And then you're like, wow, this actually, I've really seen my net worth increase. I think within those first 5 years, it's going to be really hard to see that.
And we have to a lot of times show them that with our wealth optimizer. We can show them that, right? And a lot of times they need to see that, because after a year they're like, oh man, like I'm not making as much cash flow as I thought I had, right? But then they don't see the appreciation, all the other things that the 4 pillars that Sean's talking about. So part of the asset management is sitting down with them and having those discussions with them. Like, this is what it looks like over 5 to 6 years, not just a year's period.
I love it, guys.
Go ahead.
At the beginning, we mentioned potentially kind of having you guys back and diving deeper at a later date. You guys mentioned the Wealth Optimizer twice now. I don't want to prepare your presentation for you, but maybe come back and give us a case study and then maybe a glimpse of the Wealth Optimizer.
Absolutely.
I think that would connect with the audience. I'd love to see it myself.
Well, where I'd love to see it would be on the webinar that we will be doing, a joint webinar. We still haven't found the date, but this will be an opportunity for Joni and Sean to go deeper and actually be able to look at some numbers and hopefully show that wealth optimizer. But we're working on that date. There will be a link in the show notes to get more information. But again, the podcast is great for an introduction. I'm sure some people have some questions, and that webinar would be a good way for them to be able to learn more and ask you questions. But let's say somebody's like, this sounds interesting. I want to learn more. I don't want to wait for the webinar. What should they do?
Yeah, so they can check out our website, texasturnKeyProperties.com. There is a subscribe now button they get a free wealth report, and then that puts them in contact for us to reach back out, schedule a time to do a one-on-one consultation. And but they also, I'll be happy to provide my number. So my direct number is 281-374-2671, or Sean at texasturnKeyProperties.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions and sit down with the client and go over what their questions are, and also go over any properties or what we can offer. So,
that's fantastic.
Sean, speaking of questions, before we jumped on the call and started to hit record, you mentioned that there's been kind of a shift or an evolution of asset management kind of in the single family rental space. Do you mind kind of maybe highlighting the difference between asset management versus property management?
Yeah. So I was on a webinar yesterday, and this is the whole topic. I think it's a hot button, because you've heard asset management's been around. This isn't a new concept. Asset management's been around in commercial and apartment complexes for years. There's always been an asset manager. Why it existed was more for the sophisticated investors. So the people that are buying commercial properties and large multifamily properties are typically, REITs, private equity. So these are more sophisticated. They're not the mom and pop investors, so that they're having more detailed. So they need an asset manager to kind of oversee things for their investments. But the big difference is a property manager is in the day-to-day weeds of property management. They're doing leases, they're doing maintenance coordinating,
they're putting out fires.
Eviction, all that, the day-to-day of managing a property. Asset management really is the strategic oversight and management of a portfolio of properties. So again, I'm going back to that portfolio. So I think if you're just a mom and pop and you're going to buy one rental property, you don't need an asset manager, or you don't need, you're not going to have those detailed conversations. But if you are getting into where you're buying now a portfolio of properties, which I think you should, kind of working with your property management company to be more of an asset manager for you, or working with one that does offer that kind of service, I think has its advantages. And I think you're going to see more and more in the property management space, property management companies adding value to their clients by offering additional services like asset management. So where you're seeing a lot of this come into play is, number one, like Joni mentioned, on the onboarding process. So starting off with having a strategic call up front, like, what's your goals with this property? Are you looking to exit in 3 to 4 years? Or are you, what are you trying to accomplish? Is this something you're going to give to your kids? Is this something you're going to have to live off of, when you retire? So really trying to narrow down on the onboarding, what's the expectations, what's their goals, and then you're going to need some kind of software piece. I'm talking from the PM side or the asset manager, some kind of software that can help analyze the property or their portfolio more at a higher level. So Joni's mentioned the Wealth Optimizer, which we're going to get into on the webinar that we do with you. But the Wealth Optimizer is a financial tool that will export all the data from the property management software. So income, expenses, imported into there. We are going to work with the client or the client can input their mortgage information. It's going to have populated appreciation rates based upon that neighborhood specific, what things are appreciated in that neighborhood historically. So it's going to already populate depreciation rates, appreciation rates, based on your mortgage info that you enter. It's already going to calculate the, kind of debt pay down. So then now you have a financial tool that you can analyze each property individually and how's it performing, which out of my 10 properties I own is one performing better than the other. Is now a good time to sell? Am I having a really high maintenance cost on this one? You can really look at it and analyze it, and then you can produce nice graphs and things that are easier to read, which I think a lot of more intentional investors are used to, like they get from their stockbroker or their wealth manager, financial advisor. They're used to getting these kind of reports already. So now we can have those kind of calls as it regards to single family real estate. So, and we're not the only ones doing that. There are some other tools and companies that are coming up with these softwares to help in the single family space.
Yeah. And I will say that, so if your clients have, investment properties in other markets, reach out to myself or Sean and we can connect you with somebody that does have that Wealth Optimizer tool so that it helps your clients as well.
Well, so now are you guys doing the asset management piece, or do you have the service for that?
Yeah, it's just part of our regular property management services but it elevates the value for our clients and why to work with us. And so it started off with the CSR piece, which is a customer success manager. So it started off with that piece. So we first needed somebody dedicated in our office that was going to have those conversations with the client. And then once we had that, then it came down to the software, the onboarding, and then the software to be able to fully execute on that. But it's not going to cost the client anymore. It's just part of it's what separates us from our company.
Oh, okay. That is a different piece that I haven't heard of. But I would assume you guys, well, can you do only the properties they have with you, or is there a way to incorporate their other properties?
That's a great question. It's going to only be the ones that they have with us. Now they can add additional properties to it. It's just not going to, it's connected with our property management software. So it's not going to, they would have to manually enter their stuff, but there's some other softwares out there that do it as well. I think Strata is one, Lineage is another, that are doing that. So those are more software pieces. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sean, Jody, thank you so much for this information. Any last parting thoughts here before we wrap up?
Excited for this webinar we've been talking about. And I do have one question.
What do you got?
Oh, thank you.
The Paul Mitchell shampoo. Just I mean, Anthony did say we had to make fun of you today. So
yeah, you did. And honestly, I was going to say I was disappointed in both of you for not picking on Cameron.
For not roasting Cameron early on.
Honestly, I thought Sean would have been the first one, but Joni is just right there. Hey, let's not forget about the Paul. She even knew Paul Mitchell, because I didn't even mention that before we started, but it's just so
I remembered it.
Yeah. You made my day.
Well, Sean, it was great having you. Joni, it was okay having you on the show today. Look forward to having you guys. And when we nail down a date, we'll make sure to let everyone know when we get this webinar scheduled. Again, thanks, guys, for joining us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And again, I would say, if you're trying to get that passive income more than your monthly expenses, real estate is one of the key asset classes. And I think turnkey, great way to get involved, particularly if you're busy doing other things with career or your family. Big fan of turnkey, big fan of Texas Turnkey. And on that note, go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
Yeah.
If you like this video, I know you'll like this one. And if you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, check this out. And if you have some questions and want to see if infinite banking is for you, hop on a discovery call with us. Link for that will be in the description.